Starwalker Studios presents Game Master's Journey, a podcast all about tabletop role-playing games from the perspective of the captain's chair. This episode is brought to you by Texas Beard Company. Use the coupon code GameMaster for a 15% discount at texasbeardcompany.com. Mark Garringer returns to the show today to discuss his experiences with Pathfinder Society as a venture captain. He also talks about writing monsters and scenarios for Paizo. So join me on the journey. Together, we can become game masters truly worthy of the title. Hello, listener. Greetings, fellow GM and or player. Welcome to episode 51 of Game Master's Journey, your multi-dimensional RPG podcast. I'm your host, Lex Starwalker. I've got a great show for you today. Mark is coming back on the comm today to talk some more about his experiences with Pathfinder Society as one of the original venture captains, and also his experience designing monsters and scenarios for Pathfinder. And finally today, Mark has a great idea for how to keep the loudest person at your table from hogging all the social encounters and giving more introverted players a chance to shine as well. Brilliant stuff. I really enjoyed it. So this is the second part of a 3-part interview with Mark. I'll be bringing the third part in episode 52, where we will get more into the nuts and bolts of trying to get something you've written published with a company like Paizo, and some advice from both Mark and myself on how to go about doing that. So I'm going to open the hailing frequencies, and we're going to talk to Mark about Pathfinder and Pathfinder Society. So you mentioned Pathfinder Society. So yep. I'm curious about your experiences with that, because you weren't just some guy that showed up and played in Pathfinder Society. Like you were pretty involved for a while, right?
Yeah, I was pretty involved for a while, and I was a venture captain, which is their name for a regional coordinator. Okay. It also has meaning inside the game, right? Inside the in-game Pathfinder Society, their leadership is the venture captains.
Oh, cool. I never realized that.
Yeah. It was really cool, because when they first started up, they said, we're looking for regional coordinators. We want people to go to stores and, do all this stuff, blah, blah, blah. And that's cool. And then I got accepted to do that for Indianapolis. And so I had some business cards printed up and everything. I was so excited about it, and it said, Mark Garringer, regional coordinator, with my email address and my phone number and all that kind of stuff on there. And then they came out and said, well, we're going to call you venture captains. Damn it. That would have been nice to know a week ago, yeah, because right. It sounds much cooler than regional coordinator.
Definitely.
I think the year after they did that, we got venture captain polos, so that when we were at conventions, we could wear this red shirt and it said Pathfinder Society and venture captain on it. So it looked pretty awesome. It was easy to tell who, who was in charge, so to speak.
Yeah.
So that was really cool. But so I got in kind of at the very beginning of that program through Paizo, which is just all volunteers, but they had an organized play coordinator who was Paizo staff. Part of the perks of doing it were basically, it was like, so to be a venture captain, you had to run 2 games a month, basically. Okay. And then you had to kind of agree to sell your soul for Gen Con or PaizoCon, or I think there was a third one, maybe PaizoCon UK or something. Like you had to say, like, you were going to be a tier 1 GM for one of those major conventions, so okay. that at least they would know a certain block of individuals that would be available for that. And it's a fine, that's all well and fine. And then in return, you get PDFs of everything that they release.
Oh, nice.
because we want you to be subject matter experts on the product lines as well. And like, okay, like, that's right. That's a pretty sweet deal, actually.
Listen up, wizards.
Right. Like that. I mean, because that's a lot of money, right? I mean,
Yeah.
if you look at, on a monthly basis, how many books they're putting out, like that's for real, that's for real dollars.
Now, does that include like adventure paths and everything?
Adventure paths,
Wow.
it was everything. It was, so you get all Pathfinder Society scenarios, of course, everything in every line. So if a hardback came out, Bestiary 2, you got that PDF. The new AP came out, you got that. A new module came out, you got that. Player companion line stuff, you got all of it. So amazing, right? And then once they started digitizing the map packs and stuff as well, you were getting those, so if you're doing virtual tabletop stuff, boom, you can just drop your PDF right in there and off you go. And same thing with when they started doing the pawns, again, you open up a PDF that has the pawns in it, crop out the tokens that you want, and you're good to go. So
yeah, that's sweet.
So I was involved in that program kind of from the beginning, with the original. So there's original 13 venture captains that they chose, and I was one of those. And I did it for about a year before kind of burnout set in. That it was great helping build the community here in Indianapolis, getting stores, getting GMs, getting players, coordinating all that stuff, and watching that grow was amazing. I was glad when I turned it over to my successor. But at the same time, getting able to talk to a lot of these folks at Paizo and be seen in kind of this community leadership role, raises your own profile, right? They see that you can form coherent sentences, that you're not an agitator on the message boards, that you're, that you're
Right.
able to rationally talk through rules discussions and also contribute to kind of the overall sense of what's going on in your own community versus other people's communities, or how you address certain issues, or all these kind of things, right? So it's an opportunity to present yourself in a good light for the folks at Paizo. And so between one of the Gen Cons and PAX, one of the developers at Paizo came to the venture captains and said, "Hey, we want to write some demos, for some short, 3 encounter demos that we can use at PAX to show new people how to play Pathfinder. And we were wondering if any of you guys would be interested. And oh, by the way, I need them in 2 days." It's like I've got all this work to do. I can't possibly do it all in this amount of time. So let me try to crowdsource some of it to the venture captains and see what you guys can do. And of course, a bunch of us jumped on it, said, yeah, sure, no problem. We can, because they wanted to use map packs. Or they already had picked out the maps that they wanted to use, because I think they were probably whatever they had excess of in the warehouse, right?
Sure.
Like, okay, here's the ones we've got excess of that we're going to send to PAX. So write some adventures that use those. Like, okay, cool. So we did that. And so I wrote an adventure that was just 3 encounters set in Osirian, in the Egypt analog, right? So it was kind of like this underneath the pyramid tomb kind of setup. And then shortly after that, right after PAX, they were getting ready to launch the Beginner's Box product. And they wanted to have an in-store event to go along with that launch. And so they took those 5 adventures and they did another development pass on them, put some graphics in them, and fixed them for the Beginner Box rules, simplified them for that, and called it the Beginner Box Bash. And so then all of a sudden, here's 5 adventures that you can run that take about an hour to 2 hours for the Beginner Box. And here's some in-store events. Go ahead and run wild with those. So that was cool. This was all free, of course. This was like the original thing was like, hey, can does anybody want to do this weekend for free?
Right.
Like, yeah,
right.
Sure, why not? And then they turned that into the Beginner Box thing. And again, they made that available for free download. So that's still cool, right? You open a PDF and it's got your name on it. That's pretty cool, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's writing credit.
It's writing credit, exactly.
Yeah.
So no problems there at all. So that was in like October, November, and then come February, the same developer, Mark Moreland up at Paizo, just out of the blue, emailed me and said, "Hey, we're wanting to do some more Beginner Box stuff for Gen Con this year, and we'd like to do 5 more adventures, but for 3rd level PCs, and we're kind of hoping that one person could do all of them. Are you interested? This would be paying, of course." Like, Yeah, I'm totally interested in that. That's amazing. I would love to do that, So I danced around the office for a couple of hours after I got that email because I was so excited, and went ahead and wrote 5 little, short adventures that were kind of interconnected in a way, because the way that they always do those is like you could play them in any order, right? So that you can't really assume events from one to the other or whatever. But so trying to think about that from the perspective, from the experience in Pathfinder Society, gave me, the idea that, okay, well, I can do like recurring NPC through the whole thing to kind of tie it together, right? That'll give the players a feel of continuity because they're interacting with the same NPC repeatedly, and then also gives the GM an opportunity to build that personality for themselves, right? So they can make that connection with the NPC and hopefully then with the characters and the players as well. So I did that. In Pathfinder, I've always been a fan of Sarenrae, and just very fascinated with Kyra is amazing. I love her as an iconic. And Sarenrae as a goddess just always speaks to me for whatever reason. So I made this, this ship captain who was kind of devout follower of Sarenrae, and the ship's name was like the Dawn's Blessing or something, which was kind of like a Sarenrae reference, and just kind of given another little hook into the overall game world, and give a feeling of something that hopefully people could connect with, right? Because the adventures are set in and around Sandpoint largely, I think. Okay. And so there's some water there. One of them was supposed to take place on the water. One of them was supposed to take nearby on a little island. And we'll develop this boat captain into a recurring NPC. And felt like that went really well. And then come to find out, the idea that they had for the beginner's box stuff wasn't just for new players, but it was specifically targeted at kids.
Oh, okay.
Mike Brock, the organized play coordinator, was really, this was a big initiative for him. A big passion of his was to make sure that they were offering this kind of super intro level stuff for young kids, right? To get, it's like, we started playing when we were like 10 or 11. Like, they need to be making it available for kids of that age to be able to start playing. Yeah, sure. And so they're going to use that content for that. And I was just like, wow, really? That's fantastic. That's awesome. I am so I would give you the money back right now if I could, what I got paid for, just for that, just for knowing that, that you're having that kind of first touch experience with gamers at that age, right? Like just to know that they're going to remember those in 20 years. They're going to remember that time we went, we went to that island and there was the pretty girl and it turns out she was a green hag. Like, that was awesome. I know that was awesome. I wrote that. That was awesome. That kind of stuff. Everybody has those kind of experiences from their early gaming, and to know that, potentially that stuff that I was working on could be that for other people was just so awesome. So I was very happy with that, and then going to that Gen Con and going into the room where they were running the kids track stuff and seeing, I think it was 6 or 7 tables running at once of, all these kids playing these adventures that I wrote. That was pretty cool. I had my daughter with me. She was about 7, I think, at the time. And just explaining to her and watching her face go really? So wait, everybody in here is playing a game you wrote. Yeah. That's pretty cool, Dad. Yeah, it is pretty cool, isn't it? So,
yeah, Daddy's awesome. Recognize.
Daddy's awesome. Right. And she got confused because we're walking around Gen Con, which is full of people, but it seemed like everywhere we went, we were running into people that I knew, right? So from her perspective, everywhere we went, Daddy was high-fiving people, shaking hands, saying hi. Everybody knows Daddy. Daddy's awesome. Daddy's a rock star. Not really, actually, but I'm glad you think so. I mean, that's cool, right? Everybody wants to be a rock star to their kids. So
yeah, that's awesome. I'd like to take a minute to thank my sponsor. Texas Beard Company produces all natural beard care products that are made by hand in Texas. And I use their products myself, and I am a big fan of their beard oils. And I've noticed that they have a new flavor of beard oil called Nightcap Beard Oil. And this is made with lavender oil, lime oil, bergamot oil, and has a mellow scent that is perfect for your overnight beard conditioning. I haven't tried this one yet myself, but I do know from experience that I find lavender very relaxing and a nice thing to have around when you're trying to go to sleep. So you can check out all their products at texasbeardcompany.com. Use the coupon code GameMaster for 15% off your order, and you get free shipping on all orders over $25.
So kind of from that, I was able to get into doing some monsters with Adam Daigle on the kind of the AP line of things. He's responsible for the back matter that goes into the APs and the monsters and stuff.
Okay.
And they had just announced Iron Gods, and we're looking to get some new freelance talent in to do some stuff there. And I had just finished a new Numeria, not Numenera, Numeria campaign.
Some people confuse the two.
Right. It's real easy to do, and they're both technology, and it's like, oh, wait, which one was it? Numeria. So I just finished a Numeria campaign that, we had a lot of fun with. I was kind of going crazy, Thunder the Barbarian type of stuff.
Nice.
And just going kind of like super completely over the top, right? Flying castles, robots, all, just everything. And it was a lot of fun. And so I was real eager to pitch, some monsters from that experience. And Adam, he looked at my pitches, and I think he wanted 6. He was like, give me 6 and we'll see what you got. And so out of the 6, 2 of them got accepted, but out of the remaining 4, 3 of them, he said basically like, we're already doing something along these lines. Okay. So my head was in the right place, right? Like,
sure.
Like I knew exactly what you wanted, like, because I pitched you stuff that you already greenlit for somebody else. So
nice.
I guess I could tell you about the monsters if
yeah, totally. That'd be awesome.
What's really cool is, after you do this turnover and you send it in, like, it went to an art order to a professional artist who drew, a picture of your monster, which is so cool. Awesome.
Did you get a print or anything?
Yeah. So they,
awesome.
So what they do is, I guess when you get published in a book, they send you 2 copies, I guess. One for you, and then the other one is called the mom copy. You have hilarious. One to send to your mom. So that's pretty awesome.
See, I thought I knew about publishing, and I didn't know about this. That's great. I love it.
It was hilarious when you explained to me. I was like, well, yeah, of course, because I need to send it to my mom so she can not understand anything in there, but see that my name's on it, right?
Right,
it's
exactly.
So in the first AP part 1 of Iron Gods, I have a creature called the Salgrend, which is a flying plant creature. It's a carnivorous plant creature that is just kind of nasty, right? It's alien. It's from another, it came on this crashed spaceship, right? So who knows where it actually comes from. But it has kind of these gas-filled bladders that keep it afloat, and it can expel that gas to move around. And it's got little viney tentacles and thorny mouth, and then it releases these spores that paralyze you with these fearful hallucinations for a couple of minutes while it eats you. So
nice.
It's right. It's like it's totally. It doesn't even make any sense. It's totally weird. And then the whole so explaining to a PC you can't move right now because you are having this horrific hallucination of just the most terrible thing that you can think of, right? Whatever the PC gave you for their backstory that
I've been there, yeah.
Monopolize off of.
Totally.
And just like that. Like that's awesome. Like you're so afraid right now you can't even move.
That's awesome.
And it's eating your face now. Like that's great. So
well, I love that. I think intelligent plant creatures is something that's very much underutilized in like RPGs and stuff.
Yeah.
What was it? I think it was Guild Wars 2. They had like a plant race, and I was so excited that I got to play a plant man.
I never played Guild Wars, but you're right though. I mean, intelligent plant creatures is like, it's a completely underserved market, right? Like you've got the shambling mound, right? That's about it. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty. There's Bestiary 5's coming out, so I'm sure there's some more plant creatures in there probably. When I was going through trying to make my notes for myself as far as what I was going to pitch, the thing that I wrote to myself was like a pseudo dragon, but a plant. So that was kind of my original, that was the original thing where it came from, because pseudo dragon has the poison attack. It was like, okay, so I'm not going to do poison, but what am I going to do? It's a plant, so it has spores. Oh, and it'll do some kind of paralysis. Like, that's okay, cool. So then the second monster that I did ended up in volume 3. So the Salgrand was like a CR2 little plant creature, right? Which is fine. He's fun. You can throw several at him at a decent sized party, and it'll be fun for a while.
And that was in the first part?
In the first part. And then in the third part, I have another creature, which is a CR7, which is a little beefier, and it is an intelligent undead. So I was very happy to work on this one. I had already seen the outline for the Iron Gods adventure path, the whole outline. So when you're looking at this stuff and you're kind of processing it and thinking about it, and they have the technology guide now, right? And they were trying to intersperse that stuff in there, and they're talking about power weapons and lasers and radiation and all this kind of stuff that doesn't exist in normal Pathfinder, but they were going to start putting rules in for it, right? And radiation was amazing. And I'm just like, okay, what can we do with radiation? Well, we can put it with an undead creature, because obviously, in the history of horror movies, that's never happened before, right? You don't combine undead and radiation and have them vomit on people. That happens all the time. That's exactly what this adventure path needs, is a radioactive vomiting zombie. So that's what I made. The Irradiated Dead turns out to be... so I don't know if you know, in Numeria, the Technic League is kind of, they're responsible for all the shenanigans, right? They're the ones going around salvaging the stuff out of these crashed spaceship pieces and trying to reverse engineer the technology, and they're like this cabal of secret kind of technologist wizards. And so it's like, well, what would these bad people be doing with technology? They would probably be working on some kind of super soldier program, right?
Yeah.
They've got all this weird leaky radioactive material coming out of crashed spaceship pieces. They should be figuring out how to weaponize that stuff. So that's kind of where the Irradiated Dead came from, was like, so it's like this Technic League super soldier program that didn't go well for anybody, right? Because why would it go well? So you've got these intelligent undead running around the countryside, just wreaking havoc and inflicting their radioactive vomit on people. And then if they kill you, of course, then you turn into a radioactive mutant zombie spawn as well. So it's really fun for the whole family at that point. So so that was a lot of fun to work on that creature, and just to do some play testing. When I was doing the original play testing stuff of that, just kind of doing the number crunching and trying to figure out, is this too powerful? Like, that radioactive vomit was amazing, because the way that the rules were for that was like, it's radioactive itself once it's out. So then you have this environmental hazard that you're throwing out in the middle of a combat that they have to worry about, on top of getting radiation poisoning probably from the thing that they're fighting. So it was a lot of fun.
That's awesome.
And the art that came back for it was, again, of course, was just like, yay, thank you, professional artists. Then from there, I got to do a Pathfinder Society scenario. I had talked to John Compton, who's kind of the main developer on that line. And he had approached me in like April, I think, of last year, and wanted to know if I wanted to write one. And I was like, oh my God, yes, I totally do, except I'm about to close on my first house, in about 2 weeks, and there's absolutely no way I could possibly make the kind of timeline that you're talking about in order to do this, which feels terrible, right? Because you don't want to. I've listened to plenty of other podcasts and con audio for these guys talking about all this kind of stuff on how they approach things and their philosophies and all this stuff, and they're always like, never be afraid to say no, right? But no, I don't want to say no. Like, like this is, you're offering me like my first chance, and I don't really want to say no, but I really have to, right? I really, it wouldn't make sense. I can't possibly do all this house moving, closing on the house and moving and all this kind of stuff and write a scenario at the same time.
Right.
And he said, well, no, that's, I totally understand. I'll definitely come back around to you. And then it was only a couple months later in August, right before Gen Con, that he was like, so what about now? Do you think you could write one now? Like,
that's awesome.
I mean, I could, I guess. The timing is a little terrible. We're going into Gen Con like next week, but yes, I will do it, because I didn't want to pass twice, right?
Right.
Because then I definitely felt like, well, it's probably not going to come back around again.
Right. Yeah.
If that's the case. But so I did it, took that one, ended up writing for Pathfinder for season 6. It's called The Slave Ships of Absalom. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. It was a very different challenge than any of the other stuff that I had worked on to date. It was the largest single thing. I think the word count was about the same as the 5 mini adventures, but obviously those were 5 different adventures,
right?
And this was just one continuous adventure that's meant to be played in 4 or 5 hours. So, and that was just it was a great experience because in society play they have it tiered, right? So you have to build all your encounters kind of 2 ways, right?
Mm-hmm.
For that, and then because of the random table composition factor, you have to really be mindful about how certain challenges can be solved, right? Because you can't assume the standard 4-person party, for example.
Okay.
And think that, okay, well, there's definitely going to be a rogue, or there's definitely going to be a cleric, or there's definitely going to be a fighter,
Right.
And so that kind of affects that whole dynamic in a slightly different way of like, okay, make sure that for any given thing, then maybe that there are multiple ways to solve it, because you don't know necessarily what the table composition is going to look like, and you don't want to be that guy who gets that review that says, oh my god, this is the worst scenario ever because the author assumed that we had a rogue at the table and nobody plays a rogue in Pathfinder because they're terrible.
Unless they're ninjas, right? Aren't the ninjas
unless they're
awesome?
Ninjas. Well, ninjas not bad, and the Unchained Rogue apparently is really good compared to the base rogue.
Okay.
But I haven't really played either of those to know firsthand, but that's, I hear that on the streets. So that was it was a really interesting perspective for that stuff. And then from my prior experience, running these things, I wanted to make sure and put things in there that more spoke directly to the GM about kind of how to handle the situation at the table, a little more specific guidance on some of the encounters instead of kind of the generic, here's some read aloud text, here's some stat blocks, here's a success condition, you figure it out, right?
Yeah.
In particular, there's a scene in the middle where you have this powerful political benefactor who wants you to do a favor for him, right? To investigate something, and about midway through the adventure, you meet back up with her, and she wants kind of a progress report, right? And you can imagine how this goes at most tables, right? It's whoever the loudest face character at the table,
right?
It will just rattle it off, and boom, it's done, and off you go, right? But I specifically put in there that I wanted the GM to kind of call out the wallflowers and make them give the report, right? Like,
nice.
Whoever is being the mousiest person at your table is the person you need to call on first, that kind of thing, to give them a chance, because you probably just came from 2 or 3 encounters before where that very same loud alpha face character got to do his thing anyway, right?
Yeah.
So why should he get to keep doing his thing still and maybe shutting somebody else out? So then, it was just it was a thing that I've gotten a lot of feedback in the reviews and stuff that people have said that they have really liked that for that reason.
Yeah, that's a great idea. That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah. And then the another thing that I did with one of the NPCs was I was very clear. So this guy is the NPC is a slaver, right? And even though in Absalom slavery is legal, through most of the inner sea of Galarian, slavery is really frowned upon and kind of looked down on. It's legal in some places, but it's not, not everybody's down with it. And so this guy, what he's doing is perfectly legal, but he's obviously kind of a scumbag, and he's trying to turn a buck, and he's everybody's his special friend, and he's trying to make you a special price and give you, great discounts on everything, when he's, really marking the price up astronomically from the start, right? So then he can seem like he's your friend by offering you special discount. You're special friends, so instead of 500 gold, it's only 250. When he's really willing to accept 100 in the first place. So, like he'll accept 100, but he's starting at 5, right? And because a lot of times what happens at the table is the players will jump right on the first offer and do that. And so if you say 5, they want to move on to the next thing. They don't care. The money hardly means anything to them anyway.
Right.
Okay, we'll pay 500. It's only, you got 5 people at the table. It's only 100 per person. Okay, cool. We'll do that. Like, okay, that's fine too. So, this guy is intentionally trying to fleece them out of money. And then I described the picture of him, the art order that they did. He has a beard that's done up in like 3 braids that kind of stick out, and then he's got kind of his hair pulled back in a ponytail. May or may not be how I used to wear my hair all the time before I got it cut. Anyway, that's not important. But so it says in the notes, like when you're interacting with him, that he is always like nervously pulling his hair back and fiddling with his ponytail and readjusting it and like retying it and all this stuff while he's talking to people. And again, that's another one of those little touches to the GM that gives them something at the table to help the players focus on that character as a character, right? To make that person come alive. It's like you give them this little twitch, this little nervous habit, and again, kind of a lot of good response to that kind of stuff. And like just from that perspective of like, I wish people would do more of this kind of stuff. I wish I was getting more of these kind of hints on how to make this character come alive instead of just waiting to be intimidated by the guy with the highest intimidate roll at the table, into doing whatever it is that he says. Like that's no fun.
Well, that is going to wrap up episode 51 of Game Master's Journey. If you'd like to reach me, you can email me at gamemastersjourney@gmail.com. You can find me on Google+, just search for Lex Starwalker, and you can find me on Twitter at Lex Starwalker. You can find Mark on Google+, just search for Mark Garringer. And also, if you're wanting to get in touch with Mark, head on over to the show notes at starwalkerstudios.com. I will have a link to him on Google+, and I will also have a link to his email address if you'd like to talk with him about RPGs, Pathfinder, publishing with companies like Paizo, anything like that. He's very happy to hear from you. Also in the show notes at starwalkerstudios.com, you can find lots of great information and links, including our Patreon button if you'd like to check out my Patreon page and look into supporting the show by becoming a patron. I very much appreciate all the patrons, and I have released the first episode of my patron-only podcast that I'm putting out every month as a thank you to the patrons. And I'm working on some outtakes and blooper reels. So as you know, in this show in particular, I do a lot of interviews, and oftentimes I have to cut things out just because for sake of time, or because we may go off topic and talk about things that aren't necessarily RPG related. And so I'm going to be releasing some of that stuff for the patrons, things that I think might be remotely interesting or entertaining. And I'm also saving any screw ups I make on any of the shows. And when I have a good amount of those, I'll make a little blooper reel for the patrons as well. And I've been having fun with that. I never realized how many mistakes I make until I started, instead of just cutting them out and saving them in a separate file. And I'm like, wow, I've got all these bloopers. This is crazy. I kind of suck at this, maybe. Also, at the top of the show notes, you will find our donate button if you'd like to support the show with a one-time donation, as well as iTunes and Stitcher buttons to take you directly to the show on iTunes and Stitcher, so you can subscribe and or leave a review. And at the bottom of the show notes, you'll find my contact information, email, Twitter, Google Plus community for Game Master's Journey. I really hope you'll join us there, as well as my YouTube and Twitch channels. Also, you'll find a link to a free 30-day trial of Audible books courtesy of Game Master's Journey. And if you'd like to test drive Audible books for free, that definitely helps us out here at the studio. And finally, my Amazon referral link. So I hope that you have a chance to play your favorite RPG this week. I will be back next week with another episode of Game Master's Journey. Until then, game on.
This has been a Starwalker Studios production, your source for quality gaming and hobby podcasts.
This episode's music provided by Cloudwalker, Renfield, Transboy, and Ish. Please see the show notes for more details at starwalkerstudios.com/Game Master's Journey.